It is 6 o'clock on Tuesday night, the 13th of December, and the time to open our regular Wenatchee School District Board meeting. I ask all of us to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here, and I welcome you to what is our annual organization meeting during which we elect officers for the new terms. I thank you for being here, whether it's in person or if you're going to join online, or if you use the recording of the meeting later to keep yourself informed. We're always grateful for civic effort and interest. Thank you very much. Ofrezco una bienvenida a esta reunión anual durante la cual elegimos oficiales para los nuevos mandatos. Gracias por su asistencia, si sea en persona, online o usando el video más tarde para mantenerse informado. Agradecemos su esfuerzo cívico. The meeting is conducted in English, but if requested, we do have the ability to provide translation services so that citizen comment may be spoken in Spanish and be repeated in English. Si alguien quiere hacer su comentario de ciudadano o recibir explicaciones en español, por favor indique su necesidad. Tenemos disponible un servicio de traducción. At that point, the first item after the call to order is the consent agenda. But are there any requests to modify the agenda from members of the board? There being none, then, the consent agenda contains the minutes of the meeting, special meeting on the 18th of November, regular meeting on the 22nd, vouchers and payroll, the personnel report, the surplus report, the contracts that are up for approval, field trips, enrollment and financial reports, and the updated fee schedule for extracurricular activities, athletics, and others. That's the consent agenda. Do I have a proposal to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you very much, Julie. Do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Maria. Do we have any discussion on the consent agenda? More for the public, we all have ample opportunity to read these matters. So this is a way of being efficient. And so when we move rapidly, it is after reading it. There not being any discussion, I will then call for a vote. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate that. Aye.
Aye.
And aye from Laura. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
And actually, that's the first point that I wanted to do for the next item, which is the board reorganization action item. And to make absolutely certain for this that, Laura, you're in good communication and able to participate fully.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So my first job is to call for nominations for the president of the school board, who is the chair, who will serve during the coming year. According to Board Policy 1210, at the first regular meeting at which newly elected board members are seated in election years, and at the first regular meeting in December in non-election years, which is where we are now, the board shall elect from among its members a chair, president, and a vice chair president to serve one-year terms. A newly appointed board member will not be eligible to serve as an officer unless a majority of the board has been appointed. First item on the agenda is the election of the board president. Do I hear nominations for president of the Wenatchee School District Board to serve in the ensuing year, December 2022 through December 2023?
Yes. I would like to nominate Maria Ningas for the board president for the coming year.
Okay. Maria Niegas has been nominated by board member Laura Jakes. Are there any further nominations? I will repeat this to make sure there are no further nominations going through this, and pause if there are none such. I will actually go to my script. If there are only one nomination, I believe I have a slightly different script. So there is only one nomination, and so Maria Niegas is duly elected as our incoming board president.
Yay.
Oh, I do a roll call. Sorry, thanks for, I was trying to find my script because it was off. Okay, the roll call, the vote, sorry. I will start with Laura. Laura Jakes,
Aye.
Julie
Aye.
Horton, Maria Niegas,
Aye.
Martin Barron, aye. Catherine Thomas. Okay, all four of us have done it. And actually, I've got in my later message, you will see what just happens all the time. So at that point, let me just see. The nominations have been closed. We have voted. We have only one nominee. And at that point, I confirm the election of Maria. Okay. I want to do something very quickly in transition. And I do it because I think it's relevant to the goal of maintaining a well-functioning board. Being president is a much more demanding job than I had appreciated, but for me, the rewards have been much greater than the effort required. And I want to pay tribute to my predecessor, who responded to our request during COVID to serve 2 terms in succession and provide this board with the benefit of her knowledge and unique experience during that difficult time. So thank you, Laura. I think I now appreciate what you achieved during 2 years better than before.
You're welcome.
And I want to say that we succeed when the board is a team of 5 individuals who are open-minded and work together. I look at Catherine and I look at Julie. Your work has been essential and is valued. Then I want to say that the board and the district executive are tied together with the superintendent. We're kind of like in a 3-legged race. We have to pull together if we're going to stay on our feet and keep moving forward. In this last year, I want to thank both of our superintendents for their contributions. Kim, there's a person not at this table who is key to everything that happens, does a superb job, and saves us, just like a few minutes ago, over and over again. And that is Executive Assistant Kim White. And for everybody else who I haven't mentioned, just take an anonymous thank you. So I firmly believe that we're a stronger board when we demonstrate confidence in each other and rotate responsibilities as we've done in this recent election. I congratulate Maria Niegas on her election. You have my trust and goodwill, and it's about time that you got the gavel.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. I didn't prepare a speech for the transition. But I want to thank Martin. I want to thank you for your time and dedication and the countless hours invested into the position. And I look forward to working closely with you, continue the work, as I will probably look at you and Laura's for mentorship in this new position. With that said, so now we're going to move on to the next action item, which is the election of a board vice president. So at this time, do I hear nominations for vice president of the Wenatchee School Board to serve in the ensuing year, December 2022 through December 2023?
Yes.
Oh, 2 of us. You go, you 3. Okay.
I would like to nominate Julie Norton for the position of board vice president.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, great. Smooth. Great. Okay, so I'm gonna make one last call for any other nominations. Great. Okay. Well, if there are no more nominations, we are going to go ahead and take a vote. We will now take a roll call for Julie Norton to serve as the vice president of the Wenatchee School District Board for the upcoming year, December 2022 through December 2023. So I'll start at this end. Catherine? Aye. Martin?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
And I am also an I vote. So we now have our new vice president. Congratulations, Julie. All right, moving right along. Okay, so now we're going to go into the next action item, which is the call for nominations for our WASDA legislative representative to serve on a two-year term. And this begins also in December this month into December of 2024. Do I hear any nominations for the WASDA legislative representative for the school board to serve the two-year term beginning now?
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Okay. Yes. Julie, did you hold the position for 2 years?
I was elected for just a 1 year to complete a 2-year term. So my term was only 1 year.
Okay, so and can Julie be nominated again to stay on the legislative position?
This time around, it'll be a 2-year nomination, yes. A nomination for a 2-year period, if you want to do that.
And I'm happy to, but I'm also willing to share I think there's value in sharing the board responsibility. So if there
Absolutely.
is anybody else that wants to do it, I'd happily nominate them.
I will nominate Catherine Thomas as legislative representative.
Must I accept the nomination?
No, you don't have to, and Julie can decide what she wants to do as well. I believe.
Well, I actually would like to nominate Martin for the legislative position.
Oh, my gosh.
Pardon me saying so. This should have been a discussion item, not a nomination item. Yeah, I think I'm rather like Julie. I think I would be willing to do it if that was the will of the group of us. I think we want to nominate somebody who is able to perform the job. And I nominated you because you worked on the policy committee and you could build up into that. Julie, you would justifiably say as vice president, you're busy with other things if you wanted to. And so maybe I'm going to.
I have a question. Could I ask a question?
Laura, I keep forgetting talking to you. Sorry.
I know. Catherine, my question is for you. What makes you hesitate about accepting the job? Because I have heard you say in the past that you wanted to take more responsibility, and this seems like an opportunity. So I'm curious about that.
Because I would I'd like to stay on the policy committee.
Okay. I don't think that precludes staying on the policy committee.
I'm allowed to say something, Maria?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
I think those two are almost a good fit.
Yeah.
I think they are a good fit.
Julie, can you tell us a little bit about the involvement? Unless, Catherine, are you aware of the needs of the position?
Not having been in it. I still feel like there's a lot to gain from being on the policy committee. And so I am interested in staying on the policy committee. I don't know anything about the legislative committee. Julie and I really haven't spoken much about it other than her reports and updates. So.
Yeah, it's a little bit of what you make of it. You've heard me give some of the updates. You just stay kind of up to speed with some of the legislation, which I think you already are because of your background working on the policy committee. So I don't think it would be too far of a stretch if you are interested in doing it. I attend the conferences. A lot of it was remote this year. I think they're trying to work back to in person, but I think that's still going to be an option. So really, it's not like I had to go to Olympia necessarily. Of course, they make options available if you want to get more involved, but it's mostly keeping up on the policies that are coming through. This year is going to be a bigger year than what I went through last year because it is the first year of the biennial cycle. So it is going to be a little bit more legislative heavy. So I think it's going to be a little more interesting than some of the issues coming through last year. But I think you would find it a decent fit with your policy committee work if it was something you wanted to do. Again, I'm happy to accept a nomination to do it, but I really feel like I'll be a little busy with the vice president role and maybe the finance committee role if we move to something like that. But also mostly because I just want to share responsibilities with others who want to be involved. So.
Well, knowing that being on one doesn't preclude me from being on the other. I mean, I'm happy if you're not interested to accept that nomination.
If you're willing to accept, I'm going to decline. And I assume you're accepting conditionally. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so Catherine Thomas has been nominated. Are there any further nominations? Okay. So I'm going to pause again and ask for any further nominations before nominations are closed. Okay, great. So now nominations are closed and we'll go ahead and do another vote, roll call vote. We will be, this is a roll call vote for Catherine Thomas to serve as the Wasta Legislative District, Wasta Legislative Representative for the Wenatchee School Board for a 2-year term. So, Catherine?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Julie?
Hi.
Laura?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. Oh, congratulations. Okay, moving on. I like how this works. Okay, so now a little bit more discussion. It kind of goes with Catherine's, we'll lead in with Catherine's, I guess, request to continue serving on the policy committee. This is not an action. It's more of a discussion and a consensus, right? So I'm open for discussion on any board members that are interested in serving on the policy committee.
I thought I would be willing to do that. I've never done that job before. And I think, now that I don't have vice president or president responsibilities, I think I would be very happy to do that unless somebody else wants to join Catherine.
I think having Catherine on it would, for that continuity, is excellent. Laura, do you have any interest?
This sounds like a fabulous solution. I'm all for it.
Julie?
No, it sounds like a good solution to me. I think I like the idea of the continuity, like we've tried to strive for as well, and rotating a new member in would be a good option.
Great. Wow. Awesome. Okay, so Catherine and Martin, welcome to the policy committee.
Thank you very much. Take my medicine.
And now for the budget committee representatives.
I wonder whether I should just say something about that, because that will be a new committee. And there actually is an item in the board packet that we haven't discussed. At the last meeting, we talked in principle about doing it. Superintendent Eagle made the recommendation. And if I remember rightly, we all felt pretty comfortable with it. And we talked provisionally about 2 members. And I believe that the president would appoint the 2 members, or we do it by consensus right now. But there is a very short summary. I think actually it relates to the budget presentation that we'll get later on. But before we actually have the 2 people chosen, if any board members want to discuss or ask questions about the short presentation on the purpose and terms of the committee, which is something we're required to do by that. I've just remembered the policy says we should vote on the purpose and terms as well as, and then the appointment is, it's a bit of a, it's an old policy, a little bit loose. So I think a consensus on the purpose and terms is important to establish that we do support that. Should I read this out?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
The board may create a 2-member committee to support the district's budget process. The president will appoint the members to serve on this committee. During the development phase of the budget, the superintendent may convene meetings between the committee and budget preparation staff to communicate and consult on objectives, parameters and assumptions, financial and other future year projections, anticipated decisions and allocation of resources for programs and other budget relevant issues. The superintendent will set the dates and agenda for meetings. The committee and superintendent will report significant matters to the full board in a timely manner. I just want to stress that so that there'll be a two-person committee, which will actually strengthen the information that you previously got and feeding back. The committee's role is limited to consultation during the budget development process. So that's the one key part. And we'll see this later on in this meeting, the huge task that goes into developing the budget. And this will accelerate, I think, and improve the board's knowledge as we go through this. Then the second part of it would be after the budget is developed and through the fiscal year, in order to ensure early awareness of variances, trends, and significant changes, the superintendent and the executive director of finance business will review progress with the committee. These reviews will be quarterly or more frequently by request. The reviews are intended to provide more detailed evaluation than can be accomplished during regular board meeting and enhance the information provided to the full board during normal financial reports. The budget committee serves indefinitely at the will of the board, and where that comes from is the board, by consensus, we can set up a committee. We don't necessarily have to have one that is specifically for 2-year terms. We can ad hoc as the needs change, do that. The president can appoint the 2 members. So this would be a fairly fluid setup, but one that's designed to become routine and continual.
Thank you, Martin. Rather than appoint, would everybody be okay engaging in discussion? I know I've heard Julie express interest.
I'm also
I
interested,
totally
Maria.
agree. Yeah, sorry,
So
Laura?
my thought first, sorry.
Go ahead.
My thought first is that we maybe do a motion to approve the formation of the committee and then discuss who would fill it.
Yes.
So
We do, yeah, it does say we vote on the terms and where am I go?
Okay.
The purpose and terms of the committee, which will be determined by a majority vote of the board. So
Is-
that's what we're doing now.
is
And
this an action item? Yeah, then we
I would
need,
say yes, but not a roll call vote, yeah.
Okay, so then at that point, we didn't amend the agenda.
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily need to be, you can take action at a regular meeting in any order.
Okay.
So, and we put on there the vote, the purpose of the terms, it just fits a little bit better there.
yeah, when I read it, I think that's a rather old policy and it doesn't quite fit into a slot. The intention of that it is something that we talk about and positively vote on if it's by consensus and voice vote. I feel comfortable with that personally.
Yeah.
I think we're working with something that has not been structured in perfect legalese.
So if I understand this, we can discuss it, put it into an actual action item at next board meeting?
We can
Or
do it
now?
Yeah, we can just do it
Okay.
now. I could move to
Yeah,
a formation of the finance committee.
second.
Okay. Get that, Kim? Okay, great. Any discussion? Great. So the motion passes to approve the purpose and terms. Oh, I'm sorry. We got to take a vote. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. It doesn't work that way, does it? Okay, so now we're going to take a vote. No discussion. Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Perfect. Motion carries. Okay, so now we can roll into the discussion of the appointment of the
Right.
or the committee, the budget committee. And like I was saying, Julie has expressed interest briefly. Laura, you were going to say something?
I'm expressing interest also,
Okay.
Okay. And I'm-
unless Martin has a strong desire, then I'll arm wrestle him. No. Martin, were you going to say that you have a strong interest as well, or?
I do have a strong interest, and it's something that I've worked on as an individual board member along similar lines before attempting to do this. So yes, I do. And I guess I would say I provide some continuity for the idea.
True.
Who's
Okay,
up next?
Laura,
yeah, what? I'm sorry.
do you want to go ahead and keep your hat in, or are you?
Are we doing this by a vote, or are you appointing? How are we doing this?
Well, I'd rather not appoint, I'd rather us have a discussion about it.
Well, I do agree. I do agree that the continuity is an important aspect of this. You know, I have longevity, which isn't exactly the same as serving, you know, in Martin's role. I'm open. I see that we all should be playing an important role on the board, and just the fact that we are board members is important enough. We should also spread the work amongst ourselves, so as not to burden anyone particularly more than the others. And so if Julie feels that being the vice president and being on the financing committee is not too much of a burden, then I'm happy to let that go. But I am interested.
I don't necessarily feel like it's a burden, but I do support the idea of sharing things around. It is an area that I'm fairly interested in. Even though I don't have the continuity, I understand the municipal budgeting, and so I do have an interest, but you know.
Yeah.
At this point, am I required to appoint somebody? 2 people?
If you, it doesn't actually have to be done at a board meeting. You could take it under consideration if you prefer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just.
And I think that, you know, I actually printed out policy 1240 says that committees of the board may be created by a majority of the board, which is what we did. And the board chair or president will appoint board members to serve on such committees.
Okay.
So you do have the authority. I totally support trying to do it as much as possible by consensus, balancing interests and, you know, amount of time that people take to do it.
How do you create consensus?
Sometimes we will reach it just talking amongst ourselves by friendly arm wrestling.
Okay.
I guess what I'll say is as we've gone through the search committee process, which you will take over, I tended to say, this is who I've appointed. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I guess I'll be honest. I looked not so much at developing our own skills in that case, probably because I was scared.
Mhm.
I went for the people who I thought had the most knowledge about the particular phase of the search that we were working on, because we were worried about it.
Right. Correct. Okay. Okay. I agree. Continuity is really important, but also knowledge and historical context. I know Laura has been part of probably more than one budget review and process, and I guess, for lack of better words, crises. Martin has been in this for the last year, give or take. Julie, if that's okay with you, serving as the vice president, I would like to appoint Martin and Laura to the budget committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
On to the next item is the citizens' comments Kim, do we have any?
It's not on. There we go. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Heine Withy, and I am the Director of Washington Parents' Rights in Education. I'm not from the Wenatchee area, although I love it here. So I appreciate being able to speak to you this evening. In October, WASDA held its General Assembly, which is the most important event it holds all year. It's where policy and positions are voted on and where WASDA decides what their legislative priorities will be in the upcoming legislative session. Out of the 295 districts in the state, only 127 districts participated. I feel that's sad because it was held over Zoom. But Wenatchee School District was one of the districts that did participate. And for that, I want to extend my gratitude and thanks to the parents of the Wenatchee School District. One of the positions that WASDA voted on was position number 61. This states, parents and families are important stakeholders in their children's education. The WASDA board recommended a do not pass, but fortunately, most districts disagreed, and this position was passed. Unfortunately, the Wenatchee School District was not one of those districts. You know, according to RCW 28A.150.230, district school directors' responsibilities. School directors are to be held accountable for the proper operation of their district to the local community and its electorate. This includes parents. Now, at this point, I would like to say that parents and the community have a responsibility to be involved in their district, especially if they want cooperation from their school board. But I speak on behalf of parents all over the state. They're frustrated with their children's schools, the lack of education they are receiving, and the indoctrination into ideas that violate their morals, values, and religious beliefs. They feel belittled, ignored, and disrespected by the schools. Parental rights is one of the most important issues in our country. An election for governor in Virginia was decided on the subject of parents' rights. So may I offer to the board, your parents want assurances from you that you are on their side. Voting for position 61 was an opportunity to send a message of support to your parents. I hope that going forward, you will make a real concerted effort to show that you support them and are behind them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Great. Now we're going to move on to special presentations. Mr. Eagle, I'll pass on the mic.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Mr. Alfonso Lopez. He is our Latino Relations Director, and he has an update on the work that he's been doing in his new role this year. Mr. Lopez.
Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge the school board members, Ms. Norton, Mr. Barron, Ms. Ziniguez. I don't want to forget your name. I know Ms. Jakes is also through Zoom with us. And Mrs. Thomas, I mentioned already, Mrs. Jakes, Mrs. Norton. I don't come to these meetings very often, and probably I need to come more often because I see from a short distance the job that you're doing, and it's imperative to acknowledge you because the job that you do makes a big difference in our community. It makes a humongous difference in the way we educate the kids. And the people like you, obviously are doing an excellent job. And Mr. Eagle is joining the team. And obviously you make a strong team. My job is a new job, as you know. The name of my job is Director of Hispanic Latino Relations. I don't know if we can put the presentation there. But with this, I'm telling you that for the ones that know me, I was a principal for several years in one of the schools in Wenatchee. I am sad that I left that school, but I'm happy that I'm joining a great team. When you come to the central office, you'll see people smiling. And although the job is big, all the people that are working here at central office are putting 100% or even more to make sure that the kids are educated the best way we can. My job is new, but I'm coming with the same goal, the same promise that the Wenatchee School District has. If you go to the next slide, oh, I got it here. We promise to build a foundation of diversity, equity, and inclusion from which each student emerges future ready. That is stated in my position. That is one of my big goals. That is one of the things that I need to do, is to bring some more diversity, equity, and inclusion in the things that we do in the Wenatchee School District. I'm thankful that I'm working in a district like this, and I'm happy and thankful to say that, because I have spent 27 years in this district, and that has given me a good insight of the things that we do in this district. And I know this district is very open to diversity, is very open to the equity, and also to the inclusion for the groups that we have in our community. And I'm saying that from the perspective of these many years working for the Wenatchee School District. My responsibilities are several. When I came and I started with this position, I thought my main assignment was to create a bridge, a relation with Latinos, and hear more of their voices and bring them more to share their ideas, their input, their concerns to make our Wenatchee School District better. But as I go to my job every day, some of my responsibilities also have changed. And I have some additions. I have to do some of the migrant bilingual part. I need to do some of the PAC, the Parent Advisory Council. There are some other responsibilities that I'm very happy to do, because if I can do it, why not to do it? Why not to learn? I know that we are not eternal. We have to do whatever we can do to make education better for our kids. So I'm there. I listed some of my responsibilities there, my things that I'm accountable for. But tonight, I'm going to focus in sharing with you some of the things that I have done throughout these 4.5 months that I've been having this position. Before I go there, I want to acknowledge people like Mr. Jeremy Whitley. He is the director of special programs. He is a gentleman that is very polite, first of all, but very knowledgeable. And thankfully, we are sharing kind of the same responsibilities. He is in charge of Title I, Title II, Title IV, lab, high poverty, all of those programs that take a lot of knowledge to run them and run them well. Part of that are my responsibilities too. But again, I've been surrounded by people like him that are helping me to create this path for this new position, because my position is new And I'm thankful for the ones that thought that in the Wenatchee School District, we needed a position like this. And it's not because I have it. It's not because I'm dealing with that. It's because I believe that is needed. I can tell you that the other districts had reached at me, and I'm sure to the assistant superintendent, the superintendent here, because they are creating positions like this too in their districts. One of them is last week, I got a phone call from one of my friends, one of the superintendent in Yakima, and he said, can you share your responsibilities? We're going to create a position like yours because we need it here. I've been sharing with several people in the state, and districts like those are open for another position like this. So I'm thankful for that, because with the 53% of Latinos in our district, it's about time to listen more closely to our Latino parents, because same thing, they want what we want, better education for their kids, for our kids. So I'm happy that I'm the link, I'm the bridge, I'm the person that I can talk to them and bring those ideas, that input, those concerns to the Wenatchee School District to make it better. Another person that is a key component of my job is Mrs. Diana Haglin. She has been the person that is leading me, helping me to do my job. She is the communication director for the Wenatchee School District. She's a smart lady that is communicating very well with the community, and she's leading me, helping me to do my job too. So I'm thankful that she's working along my side. This is the way my job started back in August. My first responsibility, my first event was to mingle with the community and the families of the Wenatchee School District, and we partner with CVCH to go to this event of providing classroom materials for our families in need. And in this event, we had about 800 families that came to collect those materials for their kids. It was wonderful to see the families coming and talk to us. And in one of the pictures, you can see a handsome man right there, Mr. Eagle. He was there too. And it is important. I've been stating how important it is for people like all of you to come to these events, so the community, not only Latinos, but our English-speaking community can see your faces, and they know that you're working hard, but it's even better when they see you in these events. I can tell you from the parent perspective, it is important to see people like you being present in those events. I understand. Look where you are tonight. It is almost impossible for you to be there for all these events, but once in a while, if you have a chance, I'm inviting you to come to these events. Some of you have been present for these events. Another event that we had, it was the celebrations. You know that mainly Mexican people are in this community. Mainly, we have Latinos from Guatemala and El Salvador and other countries too, but it's mainly Mexican people. That's why we celebrate the Independence Day on September 15 and 16, and the Wenatchee School District had a chance to mingle with them in their celebration, in our celebration. Mr. Eagle was there. He had a wonderful speech to address more than 2,000 people that got together at the Triangle Park. And it is important because the community is seeing how the Wenatchee District is working with them too. And for me, it's also very important to work with them very close, so I can be, again, that person that brings the input. I'm working closely with the Parent Advisory Council, and that is called the PAC. That is nothing else but a group of Latino parents that have their own board, and they are working together also to plan, to bring ideas, and also to organize parents, especially migrant and multilingual parents, to continue advocating for good education for their kids. So I'm working with them. Right there, you can see the calendar. We have meetings. We already had some. And then it's nothing that we want to do only. It is imperative to have that, but it's also required by the state. We have to have groups like this that are also helping us as a district. So we have some meetings that we already went and others that are coming. And in these meetings, what we do is we decide also on topics and themes that are going to be presented in big gatherings and other meetings where we see many multilingual and migrant parents. And we had the first one in, I believe it was in October. And in that meeting that we had about 370 some families that came to this presentation. And as you can see in this slide, so many parents were present right there. And we had two topics that we talked to them about. One of them, why reading is a key component of kids' education. If kids don't learn to read after grade 3, they're going to struggle later. It is very important for parents to know that whatever they can do to help them to learn to read before grade 3, they need to know it. Many times they don't know it. So in presentations like this, we talk to them about the importance of helping them at home along with schools and teachers. And another topic that we spoke on this meeting was about the gangs. You know, we have an issue. We have a big problem in the community with the gangs. They are starting to be more visible and doing those things that we don't want in our communities. And we know also that most of the members are Latinos. Therefore, it is important for Latino people to hear about that and bring some ideas how to work on preventing for these gangs to keep growing. So that was another topic that we had that night. And by having these many people, obviously, it's making a difference. We had our police officers presenting, and also one of our principals or administrators from the high school, and all of them did a great job. But that is one of the connections with our parents. Another way to keep communicating not only with Latino parents, but also with the community in general is these interagency meetings that we are having once a month. These interagency meetings is nothing else, but we have so many groups in the community that are out there to help families in need. They help from homeless to provide lenses, to provide even some economic help when that is needed, all kinds of help. And many times we don't know that. That's why the Wenatchee School District for some years have had these meetings here at the Wenatchee Central Office. But during the COVID years, we had these meetings through Zoom. But now, as soon as I took this position, I was asked to bring these meetings back to here, to Central Office. And today, actually, we had our meeting for this month, and Mr. Eagle was here. I think Mr. Barron was here too. You witnessed how many people came and how many people were through Zoom also they were participating in this meeting. They provide information of how they are supporting our families and families in general in the Wenatchee area. It's wonderful to have these meetings, and we have them once a month. It is important to know what resources we have in the community. Where do I direct this? Anyways, another way that I'm trying to communicate with the community is through different outlets. Probably most of you know that there is a big group in the community that is doing a lot for families, and that is called CAFE. And that is nothing else but the Community for the Advancement of Family Education. That's what they are striving for. So often they asked us to go and be presenters in their Facebook program. I think some of you have been present. I know Mr. Eagle has been present there, and I have a commitment to be with them also once a month, every Monday, to talk about some of the things that are happening in education, especially in the Wenatchee School District. So I'm happy to do that because obviously that is part of my job, to communicate with the community. Also, another thing that we are doing, another activity, is to partner with some organizations that are fighting the gangs and trying to figure out what to do to eradicate them. And one of them, we work together with Eastmont, the Eastmont School District, the Wenatchee School District, and the Wenatchee Valley College. We met together specifically with Latinos. I asked this question to our police officers: how many white kids are joining the gangs, or how many we have? What is the percentage? And what is the percentage of Latinos? They told me that is pretty much 85% of the members are Latinos. Therefore, I think it's important to bring the people that can do some more because they know more. So with that in mind, we put together these meetings to learn more how we can work together. And again, the goal is to eradicate this issue, this problem. So this continues. Tomorrow morning, I have a radio program at 7, and I'm going to bring one of the guests, and she's going to talk about some of this, what they are doing also to help. I'm also joining the state to bring some communication in regards to what the Wenatchee School District is doing to embrace diversity and to embrace equity and all those wonderful things that Wenatchee is doing. And again, I'm sharing this with you because I think I need to just to highlight the fact that the Wenatchee School District is doing a great job in addressing some of the issues that we need to address. And again, diversity is one of them. The state is very interested in knowing more what Wenatchee is doing, and that's why I'm sharing with them through the Association of Washington School Principals. If you go there, you're going to see some video clips about talking about that, and I'm there sharing some of the things that we're doing. I'm doing also with the Office of the Superintendent of the Public Instruction, which is the OSPI. If you go there to their internet page, you're going to see also some videos of some of the things that we are doing in Wenatchee. And that gives me pride of being part of the Wenatchee School District. One of the things that I do every week, I have a radio program. And the goal for this radio program was to bring information to the Spanish-speaking people about what is happening in the Wenatchee School District and bring some ideas and share all the things that are happening. They need to know that now we have a new board president. They need to know what are the goals in the Wenatchee School District, because Latinos are a little distance from from that information. Well, this is a way to inform them some of the things that are happening. So I'm thankful that the Wenatchee School District is supporting me by having this program every Wednesday at 7, from 7 to 8. And I'm glad to say that we're doing it bilingually. We're not doing it only in Spanish, because our community deserves to know it. Not only Spanish speakers, but also English speakers. We started with the idea that this had to be in Spanish because the Spanish speaking people needed it more. But as we keep moving on, we noticed that it is important also for English speaking. So we are doing this program bilingually. So if you have a chance to listen to that program right there, it's 103.3 FM and 92.1. You're going to hear different topics of things that are happening in our district. when it works too well. It goes through. Okay. These are some of the programs we are advertising through our Facebook page. And these are just examples of this program. I have had guests like some time ago, I had a teacher, her name is Nancy Navarro, and we spoke about the importance of early education ready for kinder, why that is important. She knows, she teaches some sessions, so she was good for that program and she came. Then I have had the privilege to have Mr. Corey Kalahar. He's very knowledgeable about different things, but on this specific day, we spoke about partnering with community agencies to help families in need during the holidays. And that was just last week, I believe. And it's important for families to know all of this. I have had Mrs. Iniguez also. She came and she spoke with the community about redistricting the board. Redistricting, I suppose, our Wenatchee community. Things that many people don't know, but they deserve that to know, so they'll have a better chance to make decisions when they vote and things like that. So those are just examples of some of the topics that we are talking about during this program. Then I still take a little bit of time to do other activities. Sometimes they ask me to be an MC for activities for Latinos. And if you didn't know, we just had the Winter Mariachi Festival just last Friday. And then we had a lot of people coming to this. I had the privilege to be the MC and see how our young people are participating in events like mariachi. But the best thing of this is that it's not just for Latinos. I saw many white kids joining the mariachi and the folkloric dance groups. So that is wonderful. And also, when I go to present to schools, I guess my path to be here, if I share, I hope that this will empower the kids to continue striving for their education. So when I'm asked to go and present to classrooms, I do that. And right there in that picture, I was presenting, or I went to present to Food Hills. So anyways, right here is another picture. I'm about to finish. This is another picture where teachers are teaching sessions to those parents that have kids that are gonna come to our district to kinder next year. So we have 3 sessions that we are organizing in the fall, in the winter, in the spring. And here we had the first one, and look how many parents came. They want to know how they can help their kids to be ready for kinder. That is something that we will continue. Well, I believe that is my last slide. So with that, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I keep saying, if you feel like I'm good doing this, I'm glad that you think that, and I'll do my best. So far, this is what I have done, and I know more things are coming, and I'll take them. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. By the way, I don't know who had this idea of creating this new position, but whoever had that idea, it was great, because I think it's needed. Not because I have it, but because in our district, I really believe it's needed. Any comments or questions? If not, I'm done.
I just want to make a couple of comments. In the first slide, you use the word ambassador, which is one of the very early words when we began talking about doing your kind of work. And ambassadors take messages outwards and bring messages back. And I think this is really good to see it. I turn white when I see 20 lines in the job description, but that shows the structure of everything that is being done and how this work is being integrated in the statutory and other functions that the school district have. So that's very good. I like that. And then the final thing I want to close, and everything that you are doing, and you also mentioned the interagency, for example, we are trying to realize the talents and potential of our students. That is our primary responsibility. And so when you talk about people listening, using equity, finding and recognizing people who are otherwise not being noticed, that's about finding the talents who are the resources for our future. That's what I want to say.
Well, I would like to say thank you for all the work. I've attended several of the events, and just they're not exclusive to our Spanish speaking community or Latino communities. I think most of the presentations or meetings that I've attended have been bilingual. So that's really well appreciated. And I've seen the diversity of our community. Catherine has been there on a couple that I've been at. And both the Migrant Multilingual Education Night, where the presentations were in Spanish and English, and radio station as well. So thank you for reaching out to the Latino community and beyond. And also for you as an administrator, the challenges that our parents face. And I think I have to agree with you. This position is very crucial in closing that gap. So I'm hoping between our communities and the involvement of parents in the district. So I'm hoping, 4 months in, do you see that gap closing in? Is it too soon to tell? What's your perception?
Thank you for asking that question. Obviously, I don't want to speak too much about myself, but by doing this position, that has given me a perspective that I didn't have before, because before I was dealing with a small group of parents, and it was easy for me to reach at them and connect with them when I was a principal. Now at a larger scale, I can see that parents are looking for opportunities to be closer. I don't have a good perspective yet, but I can see that more and more Spanish-speaking families want to be part of this endeavor of educating kids better. For what I have seen, for the events that we're having, people are responding in big numbers. That means something. That means that we're reaching at them. And I'm sharing, as I hear from them, I'm sharing with whoever I need to in regards to their input and what they want and all of those things. So yes, I see a change. I hope that more and more will come, because if we put our heads together, we'll do better.
I just want to say, I appreciate your enthusiasm and your developing in this role. It was a new position, and I think it sounds like you're enjoying it, and it seems to be growing very, very nicely under you. And to the extent that other districts throughout the state are now looking at kind of what you're doing and asking you to share with them, I think that's a great sign that you're fulfilling this role really well. So I appreciate the work you're doing.
I appreciate your comment. But again, everything starts with an idea and a philosophy. And someone, I was saying, thought about needing this position. And I appreciate that. A lot had to come from the board. I know that. I don't know how much involvement you had in creating this position, but I appreciate it, because really it's needed.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, and you've done some great work, sir. Much appreciated. I have a few budget updates for the board, and if we can get my slide deck up, Liz. I will share some information tonight about the budget planning process that is underway. And a sneak peek at the budget committee's work here in the next little bit. So that's the very last set of those slides. My That is the very last slide. There we go. We're almost there. Okay. Can you go to the second slide? Okay. Thanks, Liz. So I have heard that it is easy to tell what someone values by the way they spend their money. And with our budget, that's no different. We're going to seek to support the district's strategic plan, its values and priorities in the budgeting process. And if you move to the next slide, Liz, this is a high overhead pass of our budget. The district budget includes 5 distinct self-balancing fund accounts, and each account is designed for carrying out specific purposes. And therefore, each of these 5 distinct fund accounts that you see here has its own revenue sources and its specific expenditure purposes with a separate balance. But in these 5 categories, there are 5 parts here. The general fund is really our largest category. And this is what most people think of when you think of the district's budget. It's about 92% of our entire budget, and it is the fund that is used for financing the normal everyday operations of the district, such as salaries and benefits for staff, supplies and materials, contracted services, travel, etc. The other 4 funding sources you see here, capital projects, debt service, ASB, the transportation vehicle fund, those are smaller funds and target specific areas. The general fund is really moving forward in the budget process, where we're going to spend most of our time and attention and monitor the revenues and expenses closely there. Our enrollment drives the revenues in the general fund, and we have experienced some decreases in enrollment that are impacting the revenues in our general fund. Liz, I'm trying to, there we go. Okay, thank you. So a quick look at the general fund. It makes up about 92% of our overall budget. And within that fund, most of the dollars, typically about 83%, are used to fund our staff. We have over 1,000 staff that include teachers, paras, paraeducators, principals, our operational staff that keep our grounds and facilities in clean, working smoothly, running order. This shows kind of how we spend the general fund in a typical year. And we did that on purpose because it's a little out of whack this year in the purchase services category. So for the presentation and information that we're sharing with staff in the community about this, we want to do what we would typically have. And part of the reason it's out of whack is I am a contracted service. So the purchase service category is a little higher this year because of the contract with me for the interim work. But within that general fund, you see typically about 83% of the dollars there are used to fund our staff. And that includes the teachers, paras, principals, and the operational staff, and the salaries and benefits there. The remainder of the general fund is used for supplies and materials, purchase services, contracts, and travel. The next slide breaks down the staffing costs and how we spend the general fund dollars related to staffing. So I mentioned a large portion of our general fund goes to support staffing costs. And here you see how that is broken down. Teachers and teaching support staff like paraeducators, librarians, counselors, our speech and health services, as well as materials and supplies related to instruction and teaching. Those are the largest portion of this part of the general fund. And the other categories of staffing, we have district office administrative staff, M&O, nutrition staff, et cetera, and tech staff that support. And I focus on the staffing portion of our budget because the majority of our budget is used for staffing costs. And we will have to do some work to align our staffing levels with what can be supported through general fund dollars moving forward. As we pursue that alignment, on the next slide, Liz, we have been trying to actively get some information about our budget challenges out. And I've been working proactively with the cabinet team and the fiscal staff and union leadership to communicate how the budget works and some of the challenges that we are facing with decreasing enrollment. So here are some of the ways that we have been communicating. Diana Haglund and I did literally a district tour. We went to every building and every department and talked about our budget process, and some of the challenges we face going into next year. And as a result of that, those sessions and some of the questions we were answering, we decided we needed to do something more to help people really understand how a school budget works. So we created some materials to help people understand school funding. We created an understanding school funding document that is available on our website, and also a video clip where Dr. Corey Callahar and I explain the budget for the district and how that works. Those things are currently available on our website. We are working on a budget frequently asked questions document, which will also be available in the budget section of our website. And we continue to have ongoing meetings with our union leadership about where we're at with financing. So on the next slide, I have outlined a process with the cabinet team and input from others that is a fairly aggressive timeline for initiating some decisions about budgeting for the 23-24 school year. And this 5-step timeline here has really already started. In November, we began to look at the budgeting process and sort of timeline some of these things out. And right now, we're working on some guiding principles and goals for the budgeting process, which is one of the things that I hope to look at with the budget committee in early January, the subcommittee that was elected tonight to look at the budget. As we move forward, our hope is that by mid to late January, we will have some guiding principles and goals in place for the budgeting process and some of the reductions that we need to make before next year. And we will also have a process developed to gather some feedback from staff around the budget reduction process. We have piloted some feedback processes with some of our admin team to see how easy it would be for us to decipher the feedback on the backside. And I think we'll be ready to go by mid to late January with that. And the goal is that by early to mid-February in a board workshop, we will be able to create some scenarios based on the feedback we've received from staff and using the guiding principles and goals that will give the board some options for how we look at the budget moving into next year. If we can meet that timeline, then at the last board meeting in late February, we hope that the board would be able to select a scenario for us to use moving forward, and we will then go back and make that happen. Again, this is an aggressive timeline in terms of the budgeting process. But as I've worked with our new finance director, Mr. Fitzgerald, and the cabinet team and union leadership, we think this is something that we can do, and it will be the best option for getting information out early in the process. I did want to mention on the next slide that one of the things we're also looking at as part of this process is trends in natural attrition over the years in the district. And this will be important for us as a heads up for what we might expect for numbers of retirements and resignations moving forward. Although you can see in this data in the 21-22 school year, we probably have an outlier, more than typical numbers of retirements and resignations in 21-22. But the others are fairly trendy. And again, this will be useful information as we plan for next year's budget and beyond. Being able to have some idea of expectation for retirements and resignations where people are moving to different careers or moving to a different area. And the last piece here is just a look forward. So you as a board talked about a budget committee. I am excited to have some members of the board to be involved in this process and in consulting, looking at our objectives, how we allocate the resources, our parameters and assumptions, and our projections moving into the future, even beyond 23-24 school year. So the committee will work with myself and the fiscal staff and the cabinet team, and they will provide updates to the board as we move through this process. We've got a lot of work to do here in January and February on the budget. And the last slide here is really for the board and really staff members and community members. Anyone that's interested in learning more about how our budget works, which is similar to how school district budgets in the state work. We have a pretty robust budget section on our website, can be accessed using the link here or the QR code. And actually, it's really prominent facing on our website right now. If you go to our website, it's right on there, budget information on the front page. So you can click and get information in more detail than I've shared today. Some of the documents that I talked about, our Understanding School Finance, are there, and some video clips of Dr. Kalahar and I talking more about school budget than you probably want to know. But it's all there, and we hope that people who are interested will look into that. So looking forward to moving the budget process forward in January and February.
Thank you, Mr. Eagle. Do we have any questions or comments?
Just glad to see what's there.
Yeah, I think I appreciate the transparency on the challenges and the approach. Thank you. All right, moving on to our superintendent search progress report. And for that, I will pass it on to Mr. Barron.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. I'm going to give a short introduction, and then you're going to have a much more authoritative and interesting speaker. Dr. Steve Lauder will take over from me. Since the last progress report, Dr. Steve Lauder conducted a day of small group meetings on November the 28th here in Wenatchee, and Dr. Gus Balderas did the same on December the 1st, which included meetings in Spanish on that day. And then the survey window closed at 11:59 on December the 11th. So that information for stakeholder information collecting phase has been completed. I want to say for everybody that I've received much appreciation and feedback that both McPherson and Jacobson consultants were highly approachable in their listening and interaction, and I thank both of them for this service. Over the winter break, the stakeholder feedback will be analyzed and compiled, and the board will be able to read the results to be prepared for the task when we next meet on this subject on January the 10th. The committee sees it as important for both the board and the whole Wenatchee district community to be well informed on the next steps of the search process. To that end, Dr. Steve Lauder has kindly agreed to walk us through what is expected and needed from today until approximately January the 31st, when we're scheduled to be ready for the start of actual candidate interviews. I asked Dr. Lauder to walk through, and in his walkthrough, to pause for questions and clarifications to make sure that we understand and are comfortable with the journey. If we come across a point where extra work is needed and it shows up in discussion, then it will be possible to identify the issue and take timely action. And at that point, Dr. Lauder, I would like to turn this over to you and thank you very, very much for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for the warm words, Martin. That was very nice of you. Thank you. Listen, I have to tell you that it was a pleasure to be able to come and serve and visit with your community, your staff, your students. It truly is a wonderful, supportive and strong community. And that's very clear from all of the meetings we attended. I'd like to thank Kim White and Diana Hagelin for their support and their efforts. However, I'm a little bit beaten up. You know, they scheduled me for 10 meetings during my day at an hour each. So it was a wonderful experience, but I was just teasing. They really did a wonderful job. And I know that Dr. Balderas did the same thing. I think he had at least 10 meetings. So we saw many, many people and heard common themes over and over. We will provide you with a report, summation of what we thought were the consistent themes for your deliberation and discussion. But suffice it to say that people are very pleased with the community and the district. They're very pleased with the dedication of the staff and the openness of the board and the willingness of the board in this case to be listening to as many voices as possible in the superintendent search process. As we begin to walk down the next steps in this pathway, what we're doing tonight is just a basic update about where we are and what we will proceed on next. So as you said, on the 10th, we will be reviewing the stakeholder input, our report to you. We'll discuss, and I'll talk a little bit about that tonight as well, the interview questions and the interview process, as well as if we want to talk any more about the compensation, although I think we're probably in a good position for that at this point. On the 12th, that's the closing date for the applications. To date, we have 11 applications. And as I've said before, and I will say again, usually your best applicants come the last week of the closing. From the 12th to the 31st of January, we'll be doing our vetting. So we use the qualities, the criteria, the characteristics, and the information we've learned about the community from our meetings, our educational partner meetings, to try and sort out the best fit for your district and your community. And we'll present those to the board on the meeting of the 31st. We review candidates, the board will select, and I use the word finalists, but we call it a short list. The board will select those they want to see and speak to further. And we'll talk about the questions again, and we'll talk about the schedule, finalize that schedule. And at that point, the board has a choice to go down a couple different pathways, depending upon the number of individuals and how they want to interview. And I think that one of the things I would like to have some comments from the board tonight about the process itself, because I've heard that the board may wish to do something a little bit different than what we normally recommend, which is fine, because again, this is your process. In our process, the recommended process, we ask that the board select approximately 3 candidates for their interviews. If you had 3, you could do 3 full days for each of those 3 selected individuals and their significant others. You want to make sure that they are seen and seen by as many individual groups and parents and community members and staff members and students as possible during that full day. Again, the process that we recommend has 2 interviews on that day. One, an interview team consisting of staff, students, community members, and they provide the board written feedback on the strengths and weaknesses perceived of each individual candidate. They're not to select or rank their favorite candidates, but they provide input for your deliberation because again, by law, the board is the body that hires the superintendent. And then we talked about potentially having a dinner and then the final board interview on that day for that candidate. And this is the point where I'd like to hear from the board, because I have heard that the board would like to have potentially a couple different rounds of interviews. And so I'm not sure where to go, but maybe I should just ask the board to see what their thoughts are about this, because I know that was brought up before, more information, more contact with board members.
Okay, I will set the scene a little bit for this, because when we've looked at written pro schedules, we're all in one place when we talk about finalists, tentatively 3 people. But if you go upstream from the finalists, there are schedules that say semifinalists with remote interviewing. And there's some discussion about having a structure of standard questions where a number of candidates might answer those on a short video or make a short video statement. So in the extreme situation, there'd be almost, well, I would say that there are 4 steps. There are 100% of the applications that come in, and then they're vetted by our consultants. And out of that vetting will come out strengths, weaknesses, and in a sense, it's a qualification step. After that, how many steps are we going to need? And I'm going to go last because what I've heard is people ask questions. I've also heard an expression that in the last round, there was some limited access to data and information. And people are concerned that the board, if we are the legal authority for making that final decision. Therefore, what do we need to see? So I think I would open this up for board members to ask Dr. Lauder their questions for understanding their feelings about what they would feel is important for them.
I'll go first and maybe chime in later as well. I'm a little bit disappointed that we're visiting this topic again, because for one thing, the last time we discussed it, we had all the information in front of us in terms of what the steps were and what the schedule was. So I feel like at that last meeting that we had, we gave plenty of input, and I had expected that there would already be adjustments in the process. But from what I remember, given that I don't now have the same information in front of me, and maybe you all do, my remembrance is that it seemed like there was a step missing. There was a step missing where the board was involved in the selection before the group went out to the public for more review and comment. And Julie, I know you and I were kind of on the same page on that, so maybe you can make more specific comments in that regard.
Yeah, I'm trying to look back through my notes. I know in terms of process, what I was pretty adamant about, I think, and it sort of depended on how many semifinalists that we would be presented with from the search firm. But I recall wanting to be able to select about 5. And I guess that we were a little up in the air of what information we were using to make that selection, how many were going to be put in front of us from the consultant, and what that would, whether that would be snippets of video there. But I personally would like the opportunity to select approximately 5, do a preliminary set of interviews with those 5, whether it be remotely, and then narrow down to a process of 3 where we really engage in the full day stakeholder type groups. And I think that's where we also modified the consultant, or made clear on the consultant side, that we were going to be engaging stakeholder groups in that second phase. And it wasn't just going to be using the stakeholders in the first phase to collect information, but that they would also be meeting the potential candidate as well. So that's what I recall, but I'm going to refresh my notes also if anyone else wants to jump in.
Could I ask a clarification question on that? Did I just hear you say you were going to engage stakeholders in the first group of 5?
No, we didn't. Our discussion about that last time, and on your recommendation, if I recall correctly, is that there were folks who had confidentiality issues and didn't want that cat out of the bag, so to speak, until they were actually in the final round. And I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I would recommend that. A lot of this process is fungible based upon the needs and the desires of the board. But again, I think that's really an important piece. If you're one of 5, that's the odds of moving forward are not as high as if you're 1 in 3. And it does create some disruption in the force in their home district when they're public. So if you do have a group of 5, and again, that's a loose number, depending upon the number that we move forward, the board moves forward. I would suggest that we do that as some kind of remote Zoom interview process, and the board select for the next round, which would be hopefully that full day. So thank you for that clarification.
Does anybody else have? I think I want to walk backwards through this because I think I felt firm that that final interview with 3 people would involve the stakeholder group for the strengths and weaknesses, and that would be the only time that it would be public information. So I think that's clear. Then on the schedule, I think that was down for about the 13th of February. Let's say on the schedule, something like the 6th of February, there was a line for semifinal interviews. And I understood that to be remote interviews of probably about double the number of 3 people. And I didn't have any particular questions about that step, but I would like to then ask if other board members feel uncertain about that step.
No, we received a revised timeline after we had the first meeting. And the revised timeline did include a semifinalist interview week, I guess. I think it was a week. So I'm on board with what I think Julie, Laura, and Martin are saying about including, you're going to, from what I understood, you're going to, McPherson Jacobson will present their vetted group. From that, the board will narrow it down to do virtual Zoom interviews, 5, 4, however many, and then we'll narrow it down to the finalist.
Okay, so then that takes me as an individual to the one step that I don't quite understand, because we have 100% of the applicants who are vetted. And then how do we go from the 100% of those applicants to, say, the half dozen who would be semifinalists? That's the one where perhaps, Steve, you could give your recommendation and then people can respond to that.
Thank you. On the meeting of the 31st, we will present to the board those that of the 100% that through the vetting process, we bring forward and recommend that meet your criteria and the experience and are the best fit based upon the information that we've received. The board will see the paperwork of those individuals ahead of time. We will talk to you about the information we've received in the vetting process from the individuals that they've listed and the individuals that we've made contact with that are off their list. And then the board will also see those candidates answering 3 questions, 3-minute answers to give you a different flavor for those individuals. At that meeting, the way I understand the board's desire, the board will come up with a group 5 or 6-ish, depending upon the number we bring forward that make it through the vetting process for what you termed a second round. I'm sorry, the first round would be the 5 or 6. And I have a schedule that says we were going to, or the board was going to do that February 6th through February 10th. Now, if there's a different schedule, I don't have it in front of me, and I may have received it, but I don't see it in front of me at the moment. So I'll talk to Steph.
That schedule is correct, Steve. I believe it.
Oh, okay.
It was a week. I just picked the one date.
Okay, that's fine. You can actually do both interviews during that week. If you start early on and do the Zoom interviews at the beginning of the week, then the board can discuss who they want to bring back. We'll have to get sufficient time for travel depending upon where these individuals are coming from. But then that group, let's say that second round group of 3 could come back toward the end of the week of February 6th for their full day interviews. And then the board would deliberate from there. And my schedule says that they would do site visitations, either of the top candidate or potentially top two, hopefully one, during the week of the 13th through the 17th. Again, this schedule is fungible based upon the numbers of individuals and the needs and timeline that the board requires. And then we said, at least originally, that the selection process would take place the week of February 27th is what I have. Now we can modify that, we can change that, but what we'll need to do when we talk about questions, we'll have to talk about Zoom interview questions, and then questions for that second round group for both the board and the stakeholder community staff group. Does that? Mark,
I think we'll move on to the questions next. I think I may have misheard it. I agree that we don't know how many candidates we're going to have and what the caliber of the candidates are, and that we will have to use the word fungible or adaptable as we go through. I think it sounds pretty clear that everybody's got a two-step process with 3 live interviews, a larger number where we would be actually having an interview in addition to the original material, and then the selection for that, and I'm calling that the semifinalist group. But the selection to go from the general group to the semifinalist would be based on written documentation and short screened standard questions, and no direct interaction between any board members and that earlier group. And then that would have to be accomplished in an executive session. And then I thought I heard some people say that they felt that even in that very first stage, they would have liked to have some more concrete interaction. If I misheard that, then that is not a question. That what I call the selection of the semifinalists would be done basically on application data.
I think so what I'm hearing you say is that we get a dozen applications brought forward to us, and we sort through those on the 31st, and we come up with our group of 5 or 6. We interview those folks via Zoom in the beginning of the week of February 6th, and then we're bringing them back in person at the end of the same week. And then after that, they go out to the community groups. Is that correct?
that was the original schedule.
Okay,
But
so that
go ahead, please.
community group events happened the week of the 13th. Is that?
I must say, I interpreted those as two separate weeks. No, I mean, it's not to say you couldn't cram week 2 at the back end of week 1, but I think the schedule we were looking at, it had a week for Zoom interviews and a week for in-person interviews, which could be a variable number, as many as 3 or as few as 1.
I was confused because that's what I heard Steve say was.
I think, Steve, you did say that, but I think that's not, there was more slack time in the original schedule than bringing them back at the end of the week.
We can do that as long as we just give people, enough lead time, and we'll have enough lead time to tell individuals.
Right.
So if we did the Zoom interviews the week of the 6th, we can turn around and do the in-person interviews the week of the 13th. That just pushes out any site visitations to the following week. And that's fine, because we didn't even schedule, and this is not a firm date, we didn't even schedule the selection of the superintendent until the week of the 27th. So you actually have plenty of time within there in this current schedule to do what you guys are talking about right now.
Okay.
And I assume we'll have to find a time to do a special meeting in there to narrow the selection then.
Yeah, we don't have dates for those special meetings or how to handle those. And I think that's work that we'll have to do in the new year. And and we'll all have to collaborate on making that possible, and it'll depend on the candidates as well. Yeah. So getting back to the interview questions, Steve, and as a representative of the committee, I have the advantage as I asked you how we would probably get to the questions. I think if you could repeat what you said, it sounds, if I remember rightly, I'll give you a prompt that you have an array of suitable questions based on the stakeholder information and what you've learned about the district. That is too many questions than we would want to ask. You would offer those to the board. The board would then discuss those and choose a smaller group of standard questions. That is probably not a good description, but could you pick up from that and give your version of how we would do that? And that's tentatively on the 10th of January.
So the mechanics of the interview, in a 1 hour interview, you can squeeze in about 20 questions. The first one being, tell us about yourself and why you want to be the next superintendent of the Wenatchee School District. And the last one is there anything you'd like to ask us, or is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to tell us? So you virtually have about 18 questions from the beginning to the end if you have an hour, and you want them to be timeline consistent, question consistent. What we would do is we would propose to give you questions for your, the pleasure of the board, based upon the qualities and criteria that the board would like in the next superintendent. We have lots and lots of standard questions. Those questions can be modified. They can be, you can write your own questions that you need that might be specific to the desires of the board. What we would propose is to provide you with quite a few questions in each of the categories. Budget could be one, personnel could be one, public relations could be another one of the categories, et cetera. And the board would then make their selection, in this case, potentially 3, because if you're going to have 3 rounds, you need 3 questions in each of the categories. In the finalists, the second round, where you have only 3, you need to have 2 questions that are similar. You would like your community stakeholder staff student group to have a question that's very similar to the question that the board asks the candidates in this round, because then they're looking at the same things or similar things. In that first round, those questions could be different because it's only one interview team. So what we would propose then is to provide the board with this via email, and some boards do this offline and they make their selections 1, 2, 2, for example. First round interview, 2 questions for the second round interview. We put that together and share a consensus with the board. Other boards want to do it in a meeting, and both of those processes work very well. Even in the first example where the board members did it individually and offline, you would see the results and make comments and have a discussion about that. You wouldn't do that in an open session, but you would do that in a work session. So that's kind of the process in a nutshell. We'll provide you with lots of questions. If you like them, great. If you don't, then we can either provide you with some additional questions, or the board can, seek out questions that they need or want on their own.
Anybody got any?
So in terms of the process, I think where I'm disconnecting a little bit is you're calling it a 3-stage process.
Yeah.
And I have in my head that this final interview process with the 3 is the on-site part as well. So it's part of it is meeting in person with us, and part of it is meeting with our community group. So to me, that's all step 2. But if it's just semantics, that's fine. My other, I guess, question is January 10th. We're going to be going over the questions, but are you going to be suggesting any changes to what we've prioritized or anything based on the feedback you've also received from the community? Or when are we going to get feedback to suggest that maybe we should modify any of our priorities? Or are you comparing both sets of sort of priorities when you're evaluating these candidates?
I would suggest that the priorities that the board has developed are aligned with the comments and concerns that were developed or at least expressed during our community meetings, educational partner meetings. And that's not unusual. It's very common. Even the students will talk about budget issues. They know that there's a budget problem, so that it's a concern for them as well. So while each individual group has some variation on that theme, the vast majority of the themes are very consistent. And the board is always in touch with what's going on. So what I would tell you is that I'll present that information to you. If there is a disconnect, which I have not found one, if there's a disconnect in the minds of the board, we can make some modifications. But I think it's moving along very consistently with what we talked about and what I heard the board talk about in our beginning meetings. So the questions I think really are at the pleasure of the board. I mean, I'll bring to you the categories that we have, and we have lots of different categories. The board can say, well, we don't want this category, or we want this category, or we want a different category, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I think you're aligned, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't think there's any surprise to be told at the meeting of the 10th of January.
I think I'd split Julie's question a little bit into two pieces. If I go back 3 months, we talked about the profile, but I believe the profile, we all supplied information, and that actually is embedded in the job profile in the advertisement. So I think we have essentially done the profile of the qualifications. The other part that we'll learn more about now is fit from stakeholder feedback that doesn't change the profile. And that's the way I would read that. And then making a quick comment, we talk about recommendations to the legislative committee, for example. I think it, and I would ask my colleagues this, I think we found it effective when we're doing something like that for questions to have what you call the offline version, where individual board members can send their preferences in to a clearinghouse rather than doing that in a lengthy meeting. Then that can be compiled and that accelerates the final selection. But I'd like to ask what other people think about that. Sounds like there are nods on that then, Steve.
Okay, that's good. I think it's the most efficient way of doing it, because you will have had time to look at the questions and make your personal selections, and then forward that, and we'll look at that consensus and go from there. Because, you know, I can give you 15 or 20 questions in each category, which is usually far too many, but I try to cut them down so that you don't have as much work. But, you know, if you want more verbosity, we'll certainly give you that too. So what I would suggest to you is what we heard from the community is, I think, the same kinds of things that the board was looking for: communication, approachability, honesty, longevity, somebody who has a connection to the community. Bilingual would be preferred. The person who has success working with those underserved populations and students, success working with those groups, success working with associations, teachers, classified staff, somebody who wants to be part of the community, somebody who is fully engaged and highly visible. So all the things that you talked about are the things that the community, the staff, and the students talked about. So there is no disjuncture there in my mind. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but that's sort of as it comes to the top of mind in the meeting tonight. So again, I think we're aligned.
And then a very mechanical one. I believe that we will have some reading to do before the 10th. Do you have a rough idea of when the board should be ready to read and digest your work?
I have gotten my notes put together and my summary put together. I need to get it proofed and vetted. I'm looking forward to Dr. Balderas' notes in the next day or two. Hopefully we'll be able to get you the documents before the break. When do you guys break for the winter holiday?
This Friday. To give you a bit of slack time, when I sent a question to you, I put the 19th of December with a query on it.
Yeah, I know that we can do it by then for sure. It is even possible that we can get it to you by the end of the week. And especially if you don't mind that it's not completely proofed and vetted, but you have the rough documents. I do know that they're compiling the online surveys, and we'll be getting that out as soon as possible.
I ask my colleagues this. I think I would prefer that if you need a couple of days to make sure it's compiled and everybody's comfortable, we'd rather have 2 days less reading. I think this is so that we can anticipate and budget our own time. That's what I see. Right.
Good.
So give yourself some flex on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Any further questions, comments? Laura?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Steve, and thank you, my friends on the board, and we will work together as we go through this. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Let me just say thank you for the opportunity to come and serve your community and your students and your parents. It's been a great pleasure, and it's been a joy to meet the individuals and amazing students. It's a great community. It's a great place, and I am confident that we're going to get some amazing candidates.
Thank you, Dr. Louder.
Thank you.
Okay.
As
Thank you.
on the tail end of that, I was able to attend the community forum that was done at the high school. And I agree that Dr. Louder is spot on with what the communities, what I felt from that meeting in that group, and their interpretation and expression of what they are looking for and expect does really mirror what we kind of had on our list as well. So it's interesting to see in person.
Thank you.
And by the way, that's not unusual. The board is hearing from the community, they're hearing the voices, and they're reflecting that, and we just verify it when we go out and speak to the community and let them be part of the process. So thank you so much for attending.
Thank you. Great. So moving on to the next agenda item, the superintendent's report.
Okay, great. We have had a lot of good stuff going on in December, so I've chosen a few things to highlight. I recently participated as a guest on the Cafe Group's Un Bien Consejo Zoom to discuss the superintendent search process and a few other district-related topics. That Cafe Zoom is an opportunity to connect with our Latino families around the district about our related events and initiatives, and I'm happy to have had that invite to participate. We recently had about 40 fourth graders from across the district participate in the 9th annual Shop with a Cop event. Our counselors and school staff choose students to shop with law enforcement officers at Hooked on Toys using $100 gift cards. And with the help from the officers, the students picked holiday gifts for their families and also one gift for themselves. And I want to give a special thanks to our school resource officer, Corey Fuller, who coordinated that event for the district, and to our partners, Premier One Properties, the Community Foundation in North Central Washington, Fund for Youth, and Hooked on Toys for their sponsorship of that event for our students. As part of our expansion of the career and technical education programs into the middle school, recently our CTE coordinator, Beth Hammerberg, took some students out to explore careers through industry tours. Last week, students from Orchard Middle School, Pioneer, and Foothills toured the local business Heirloom Creatives to learn about entrepreneurship and running a full-service video company. So the students got to meet the owners, learned about their career paths and training, and got to be part of a video experience. And Beth and the CTE team are planning more tours throughout the year, so I hope to give you some updates on that. And this work aligns with our Big Six in number 6, involved in real world relevant learning. Over the past 2 weeks, some of our elementary teachers have participated in math learning labs, which is professional development with Dr. Andy Boyd. The learning labs involve teachers co-planning lessons and Then utilizing strategies that we've been working on this year for math instruction to teach those lessons and observe each other with a debrief period and reflection afterwards. This again aligns with our strategic plan work in mathematics and in preparing students for algebra. And I got to attend one of the learning lab sessions at Sunny Slope Elementary, and in the reflection part of the lab is a great learning experience for the teachers. I mentioned to some of you earlier, last Friday's mariachi event at Wenatchee High School was a packed house and included great performances by our students, and our own MC here, Mr. Lopez and Mr. Kalahar were there to introduce the event and keep it going. And we are proud to host those packed house events at our facilities. Today, I was at the Pybus Public Market at lunch to watch a group of our ASL or our American Sign Language students from Wenatchee High School. They performed traditional carols using sign language at the Pybus Market during their very busy lunch hour, and it was a job well done by the students. They represented us well, and it was great to see them in front of the audience today. So some other great things going on as we head into our winter holiday break. We've got some door decorating contests going on. I think some of you were in on judging those today. Dr. Kalahar and some of the cabinet members and I were in on judging those as well. And it's just a great week to celebrate as we head into the winter break.
Thank you, Mr. Eagle. Board communication.
Piggybacking on your discussion about the doors, I enjoyed that. They take it very seriously. I was actually offered cash to judge certain doors higher than others. I did not accept it, but that was a lot of fun, and a lot put into that. Particularly, I don't know if you were able to scan and hear the students on video. On one particular door, they actually had what are the codes called with the QR codes for each student to speak on a video. So that was a lot of fun. Also attending the Student Superintendent Advisory Committee was very interesting this week. Seeing the new representatives from West Side was great. And I look forward to attending another one of those meetings, hearing what students are concerned about. And they've even got a petition going. So it's good to hear their voices and what their concerns are. So. And one quick question, Laura, I need to know where you are because I think I'm going to meet up with you on Friday.
Really? Well, I am in Maui. That's where I am.
Well, I will be there Friday. So I look forward to finding you.
How interesting. Text me.
Yeah, I'm going to walk some of the same ground, but I have a motive. December's a super busy time academically and for extracurricular activities. Everybody's juggling everything. And so I'm going to focus on extracurricular activities because they involve huge efforts from the students and huge efforts from families and volunteers. And they're really, really special. They are a huge part of what I'll call the power of educating a whole person. And I really want to stress that. And then let's talk about athletics as one example of it. How everybody managed all the snow weather cancellations and suffered through it. I see you nodding, right? And then that was after the smoke at the beginning of the season. So I just want to thank and congratulate adults and students in the athletics program. Then I want to talk about arts and music. When I came to Wenatchee, I said to myself, I've never lived in a community with so much live music, playing it, not just watching it, and grassroots participation in the arts. And then I'm going to link that to our new logo up there. When I see all those waves, and I was part of this focus group, what it says to me is you can do anything from Wenatchee. And that's because we have a school district that gives opportunities in many, many areas. Now, yes, we got a lot of work to do to get those opportunities to everybody. But I think and we're a multicultural community. Before the meeting, we said to ourselves, how many concerts are there at this time of year? 20, 30? I don't know. I only managed to get to 2. And so one was the Mariachi Winter Concert and the other was Madrigal Feast. But I want to give a lesson about that. Where else would you find excellence and diversity in music in one community like that. They're both unique, long-lived, rarely done events that most school districts wouldn't even think about. So they're an example of the exceptionality of the students and the community and family support. And that's my message for today.
Thank you, Martin. Julie?
Well, since you mentioned the extracurriculars, I just want to thank our transportation staff for safely getting our basketball athletes back from Yakima last Friday. It was a precarious, beautiful day getting there, but a precarious trip back. And I'm just glad that they did it safely and all the students were safe. And then we wisely decided we're not going to Spokane the next day, which I think is hard decisions to make, but I value the staff in making them for the better interest of our students and our parents. And it is fantastic to be sort of back in this sort of season of lots of events going on. I think we took for granted having 2 years of basically nothing to now being a parent of 3 with between the kids who elect to be in music and not, and for the sing-alongs that just happen as part of school activity, trying to balance all the calendars. It is a feat in itself, but it's one I welcome now, and you don't know how much you appreciate it until you've lost it for a little bit. So I'm glad to see it coming back. We haven't lost those things. In fact, we're building on them with so many other great activities and festivals to working in addition to the art, the music, the other field trips and whatnot. It's great to see these coming back. And although it complicates my schedule tremendously, it is well worth it. So I appreciate the effort by everybody.
Laura?
I'm just grateful for the opportunity to participate in this meeting. Look forward to the new leadership structure in the next year and having a really great, productive team to get the district moving towards its goals and the hiring of the new superintendent.
Hey, thank you. And then on that note, I'm going to just repeat Martin's words. We are a stronger board when we work together. And so thank you for all the volunteers to do the work and serve on the committees. Other than what everybody else said, thank you to Miss Brittany from Foothills Middle School for the invitation to attend the robotics competition. Was that last weekend? Okay, thank you. I think it was 2 weekends ago. What's the last weekend? Anyways, it was great to see so many different local school districts participating. I went pre-COVID and it was just as fabulous as it was, I believe the last time they met at Foothills. So congratulations to the Foothills robotics team and the coordination of that event. And then just a reminder, our next regular board meeting is January 10th. Yes.
You're right. It was the first Saturday of December because that was also the first day I wanted to mention, or I want to mention the Christmas Bazaar again was huge. Filled the high school, actually added 10 more vendors than they've ever had, and had, I believe, 10 or 12 on a waiting list to get in. So that was a really, really big event. And I heard recently, actually yesterday, from some members who had sold their stuff there and were thrilled. It was just really, really great. So that was another good event on that day. Which so many, and one of the things that this particular lady said was that the students there helped her enormously. And so that the parents and the students that put such effort into that, it really should be commended as well. So
thank you. We have no further comment. Great. So we are adjourning.